What's good, YouTube? It's Justice I Used to Be Pay, and today I'm back with another video. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about parasocial relationships in rap. But before I get into that, make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Do all those things. It helps me out a ton. And we just hit 25K way faster than I thought we would. So I just want to say I appreciate every single one of you guys who have subscribed. And if you're not subscribed yet, go ahead and do it now. We're on the road to 50K now. But this video might be a little different than the rest of my content. Not too far from it, but just take this ride with me. Fandom has always existed throughout human history. Humans have been fans of other humans who have a higher status in their society since the beginning of time. Whether that's, a king and a queen, or an athlete, or an artist, or a musician, or a political figure, or a religious figure, or a rebellious figure. Like, there's always been some sort of relationship between somebody with a higher class and people with lower class in terms of them following and admiring that person in a way that's typically reserved for family and friends only. This is no different in today's internet era, and if anything, it's actually become more and more prominent in this modern era, because in the past, the only people who were really able to get these crazy followings were people like a Michael Jackson, a Prince, a Martin Luther King, these major pillars of society. But now somebody like Lil Durk has a crazy following just like these guys had. Now, obviously not to the same extent in terms of pure numbers, but in terms of having a fan base that follows every single move that they make and having fans that, are really loyal to these figures. Now, this isn't me trying to shade Lil Durk and be like, see, back in the day, people were fans of Michael Jackson, now they're fans of Lil Durk. I'm just trying to illustrate the fact that you don't have to be a worldwide phenom that can go to any country and sell out 40,000 seats to have people see you and people are fanning when they see you. You don't have to be that type of figure anymore to have these massive fan bases and these rabid fans that follow your every single move. These types of fan bases are becoming more readily available for pretty much anyone with any level of notoriety because of social media now. The expansion of technology and social media has created a world where everyone feels closer than ever to their favorite public figure, and now it allows for more people to create these kind of one-sided relationships, and these relationships are called parasocial relationships. In this video, I'm going to talk about the more extreme side of parasocial relationships when it comes to rap, but before I actually get into that, let me give you a quick definition for the people who don't really know what that is. Parasocial relationships are generally defined as one-sided relationships where one person extends emotional energy, interest, and time, and the other party or persona is completely unaware of the other's existence. Parasocial relationships are still a bit of a mystery in terms of how they form and what effect they typically have on people. It's generally believed, though, that parasocial relationships are just formed by a familiarity with the person that they're seeing. Maybe you see them every single day on social media or you listen to their music every day. So you kind of start to tie emotions and feelings to that person. Think to yourself, those Swifties, those big Taylor Swift fans who are in the car crying when they're reacting to our new album. Now, we tend to make fun of these people for the most part, but all of us have some sort of parasocial relationship that we have. Maybe it's with an athlete or a musician or your favorite comedian. We all kind of have these parasocial relationships. And I know it sounds kind of crazy to say, but it's a regular thing. It pretty much happens in all spaces. Pretty much everyone has some sort of parasocial relationship, especially if you have maybe a poster of somebody in your room or a tattoo especially. And the people who in general are thought to be most prone to these relationships are really young people and people who just have a lot of time on their hands. But that doesn't mean that those are the only two categories of people who have parasocial relationships. But these relationships have had a massive impact on the modern rap scene. And I honestly don't know if there's a better time to talk about it than right now with the whole Kendrick and Drake beef breaking out and fans picking sides and basically fighting on the front lines on Twitter. A major sign of a parasocial relationship is how somebody reacts to somebody criticizing the thing that they like, the person that they like, whether it's an athlete, a musician, or anything else in between. Of course, people want to defend the stuff they like. So, a small argument may break out or, they may go back and forth or criticize what the other person likes. Maybe I'm a big LeBron fan and you're a big Kobe fan. And I say, Kobe's not bad. Those type of arguments, they happen. But when it's a full-fledged emotional argument and the person is getting really personal and they're insulting, your family members over you saying Kobe isn't that good, that's probably when we get into the space of a really deep parasocial relationship. Most of the time when people take these arguments super emotionally and super seriously, it's because they tie in that person that they have a parasocial relationship with into their own identity, right? If I'm a huge Nicki fan, I'm a Barb till I die, and you insult Nicki, you're basically insulting me at that point. That's why a lot of the time they take it extremely, extremely personal. And, sometimes people end up getting doxxed, their family gets doxxed, they'll post their public information and try to call them, say everybody call their job, call their mom, do whatever, harass this person. Like, these are things that really happen in real life. And for example, there was a TikToker by the name of Bellatown who made a video at the height of the Nicki Minaj Meg Thee Stallion beef, and he was ripping into Nicki. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it was not a nice video. He was really tearing into her. So it was a pretty personal video, but Nicki's fans in response ended up doxing the guy. And not only did they dox the guy, they were sending him death threats. And not only were they sending him death threats, they were sending death threats to his family. I believe someone even may have left a letter on one of his family members' doors of their house. Like, it got really, really crazy because he insulted their queen. While parasocial relationship may be like a new term in rap, it's definitely not a new concept or a new idea. Rap has had diehard fans since the beginning, since the 80s, but they've even gone as far as having those, kind of crazy parasocial fans who take things a little too far. They had those back in the day as well. If you can remember back, there was a beef between two coasts because of two rap crews. Imagine a whole beef between two coasts because of two rap crews. There was the East Coast, there was the West Coast. Now, obviously, it wasn't that serious between the fans, but they were taking it pretty serious. They were taking it pretty serious when it came to not liking the other side. When those dudes came to the other coast, when the East Coast went out west or vice versa, there was a little bit of static between the artists and regular people because of the parasocial relationship that they had with the artists from their region of the area, or from their region, right? That's why you got Snoop Dogg going to the 1995 Source Awards talking about the East Coast don't got love for Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and Death Row.
The East Coast don't love Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. The East Coast ain't got no love for Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and Death Row. Y'all don't love us.
So while everyone might not be super familiar with this term parasocial relationship, and it might be new, it's definitely not a new concept. So old heads, you're not running from this smoke either, okay? You can't just blame the phones and social media because y'all was riding or dying with the artists from your region when they didn't know you, bruh. For the most part, though, parasocial relationships aren't that serious. They're pretty harmless. Most of the time, it's kind of just a phase that a person goes through because they see a celebrity that they feel like resonates with them in that time period in their life. So, a teenage girl in high school might be going through a breakup, so they might start listening to Taylor Swift a lot. So it's typically pretty harmless, but sometimes they can bring out some pretty toxic results and some pretty dangerous results in the extreme cases of parasocial relationships. And in terms of extreme cases of parasocial relationships, the most prominent example that most people point to in rap is the Barbs. And the Barbs are Nicki Minaj's fan base, and the Barbs are just rabid animals. Okay, they go crazy for Nicki, and they will go and get on anybody that either attacks Nicki or Nicki herself is kind of greenlit as an enemy of hers. There's the regular crazy fan stuff that the Barbs do, getting in someone's comment section and leaving mean comments, or trying to distract people from streaming their music, or just saying mean things about the artist or whoever has gone against Nicki on Twitter. Those are just, they're still pretty weird to do, but it's your regular crazy fan stuff. But the Barbs have been known historically to take things too far. Again, like I mentioned earlier, they dox people, they'll send death threats at people, they'll even, end up finding somebody's personal phone number and spam calling that person, spam texting that person, which is hate messages, or calling their employer. One Barb, it was a fan account on Twitter, even flew from Los Angeles to Phoenix, Arizona to meet up with an Ariana Grande stan page on Twitter to have a fight. These are the type of people that are just way too in deep, and the Barbs are kind of the main example for that in rap. Even at the height of the Meg Thee Stallion and Nicki Minaj beef, there were reports that the cemetery in which Meg Thee Stallion's mother is buried in were having to beef up security because the Barbs were doxing the location of Meg Thee Stallion's mother's gravesite. The Barbs have been the standard for parasocial relationships in rap for an extremely long amount of time now. They will even change part of their personal lives to fit in with this kind of Barb thing. They'll change the way they dress and the way they present themselves, and they'll even not interact with certain people based off of their relation to Nicki Minaj. They'll even find some sort of animosity for people who have a negative relationship with Nicki Minaj, like a Lotto or a Cardi B. Most barbs, I'm not just talking about regular Nicki fans, but barbs would rather like die than listen to Lotto or Cardi B. They might have even been fans of them in a different life, but just because they found Nicki first, they will not enjoy Lotto's music or Cardi B's music. But this is kind of a thing that people like to attribute only to female rap fan bases or female musician fan bases. Oh, those crazy girl fans, they always go too far. But this is not a thing that's solely on the female fan bases and the female artists like a Cardi B, a Nicki Minaj, or a Beyonce. This works just as well for the men too. Right now, the biggest example of these kind of parasocial relationships in male rap fans is the beef between Kendrick and Drake, right? The fans are picking their sides and they're sticking with their guys, which happens, but they're taking it to a far place sometimes. For the most part, it's just them already being biased and being like, listen, I don't need to listen to a single diss track. My guy won. Or when it comes to the accusations, it's like, my guy is definitely not guilty of anything, but the other guy, nah, we got to look at him, bro. Like, nah. My dude didn't do anything, but the other guy, we got to look at him. Or just in general, kind of going into the beef, not necessarily going in like unbiased. Like most people go into this rap beef stuff, they come in without any answer and they find the evidence to back up whatever answer they're coming to. But these fans go in with an answer and try to find evidence to back up the answer that they already had going into the beef. The beef between Drake and Kendrick, though, has gotten extremely personal, and as a result of that, the fans have as well, attacking both of their families, their mothers, their children, the relationships they have, and just overall really overstepping in a beef that has nothing to do with them. Yet one of the craziest displays of parasocial relationships I've ever seen in rap is the fans' reactions to the YoungBoy and Durk beef back around like 2020, 2021. I mean, it's still going on, but at the height of it. Now, I know it sounds kind of crazy to be talking about YoungBoy and Durk beef in 2024, but if you were around, you know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to these parasocial relationships and these fans picking sides and taking things extremely personally and doing some really heinous stuff when it has nothing to do with them. But specifically after Von died is when it really got weird, like really weird between the fan bases, because this had gone from a beef where it was just regular rap beef. Of course, they were kind of threatening each other and talking about you not a real gangster, I'm a real gangster and all that stuff. But it really got to a point where now blood was shed. Somebody had actually lost their life because of this beef. So of course the artist took it to a different place, but the fans took it to a different place as well, because in the beginning of things, it was just kind of like, YoungBoy ain't as good as Durk, or nah, Durk ain't really as good as YoungBoy. And maybe they would talk about, well, he's not really a real gangster like that and all this stuff. But it really went even further after the death of Von, because not only were people like pulling the other side's gangster card and saying that rapper's not really like that, or no, my rapper's really like that, like he was in the streets, bro. It went even further to where the fans were now smoking on Von. They were talking about smoking on King Von. Durk needs to slide for Von. And then in response, Durk fans start talking about smoking on Dump or whoever else died from NBA YoungBoy's side. And it just got to a really strange place where a bunch of 15, 16-year-old kids were online making fun of people dying just because their favorite artist was now in a rap beef. Well, I really shouldn't just say just a rap beef, because it wasn't just a rap beef. Obviously, somebody died in it, so it was further than that. But like, this is what we were living through in 2020, 2021. And if you were following me on TikTok back then, by the way, you are a real one if you've been supporting me for this long. But I was making videos and I would be in my comment section reading comments of people not only just doing the whole why be better thing, which is, a sign of a parasocial relationship in its own front, but like, that's not that bad. But people were going as far as listing off dead people's names back and forth. Like, I remember specifically reading comments of YoungBoy fans being like, oh, well, this is why this person died, and this person, and this person, and this person. And then the Durk fan would respond back, well, what about this person, this? Like, they were listing off the names of dead members of the other fans' crew, or the other fans' rappers' crew, in a way to try to get a one-up on the other fans. Listing off dead, like, it was just insane. And of course, around that time, we had the slide for Von memes and people just in Lil Durk's comment section harassing him about his friend dying and making fun of him for that whole situation. But people even took it further than that when King Von's autopsy photo got leaked and YoungBoy fans were starting to make King Von's autopsy their profile picture. This is the type of stuff that we were talking about. They were making a man's leaked autopsy photo their profile picture in an attempt to troll. People were even like DMing King Von's sister pictures of his dead body. Like, it was just an insane time to be on the internet. But after about like a year and a half of, I guess, Youngboy fans having the one up, Youngboy / Quando Rondo fans having the one up on the Durk fans because, you know, I guess King Von was the only person that died and that was on Durk's side. So Whippy were winning, which is insane. There was the murder of Lil Pab. Lil Pab was Quando Rondo's, I believe he was either his cousin or his really close friend, and they were riding around LA together, and their car got shot up, and Lil Pab ended up dying. Lil Pab died, and that was like the rejuvenation that Lil Durk fans needed. They went crazy. We smoking on Pab. You can't say slide for Durk no more. Like, it was crazy. And what made it even worse was the fact that when Lil Pab died, it was broad daylight. At least the news report was broad daylight. And they have the video of, you know, people taking his body out of the car. And Quando Rondo is screaming in agony because he just watched one of his closest friends die. And he's screaming no. And that ended up becoming like a meme in the Durk community, like playing that no sound or commenting no under his comment section. Like, this is the type of stuff we're talking about. Just insane, completely unhinged behavior because of a parasocial relationship. Making fun of life being lost because your favorite rapper is on the other side. It was like people were comparing these deaths back and forth like they were talking about sports. It was like, you know, we're arguing LeBron versus MJ, and I'm like, MJ got 6 rings, Bron only got 4. But instead of us talking about rings, we're talking about dead people and who's dropped the other side the most or who's died. Like, this is the type of conversations that were happening. But this isn't anything like new. We've seen people rooting for death and destruction in rap beefs for years. And even specifically when it comes to Chicago and Chicago artists, this isn't anything new either with the whole beef between like the 63rd guys and O Block, right? But most people were on the side of like the O Block guys, the King Von, you know, Chief Keef side of things, just because those were the guys that got famous first and were the more famous artists. So they were making fun of the 63rd dudes for dying. They were making fun of Tuka for years, right? Of course, people didn't really know what that meant at first when people were talking about smoking on Tuka, but once everyone learned, it wasn't like they stopped. Of course, there's a difference between like rapping it in a song, but people were actually talking about smoking on Tuka. Like, that was slang. It became slang because Chief Keef was saying it. That's Chief Keef, so I'm gonna say it. FBG Duck, one of the biggest rappers from the other side of the whole Chief Keef, Lil Durk, and 63rd beef, one of the rappers from the other side, had talked about it for years. Fans in his comment section trolling him over his friends dying and talking about his friends and that's why Lil Durk and them, that's why they did this to y'all, and that's why he talked about it for years until unfortunately he ended up becoming a tragedy to that, you know, war that's going on between those two sides. And the trolling didn't stop there. They were finding other people to troll who are affiliates of you know, FBG Duck. They were trolling his mom. Like, it just went really to a crazy place. And even now with like, I think the most recent person that was pretty prominent in that beef to die was FBG Cash not that long ago. People were trolling then and posting pictures of his dead body then. Earlier on, I spoke on parasocial relationships kind of forming because of familiarity, and that's often what happens, but sometimes it may form due to loneliness, due to people not feeling like they have certain people around them that they want around them. That's why, you know, sometimes the younger kids end up looking up to these artists in more of I don't want to say a parental light, but kind of like a role model type of thing. That's why sometimes, you know, back when you were in middle school, there was a girl who sat in the back of your class who did not play about Nicki Minaj and her music, because she was kind of missing some of these things in her personal life. So she took on the role of a Nicki fan and adopted a lot of those characteristics because she felt maybe a little lonely at home or a little lonely when it came to friends. Sometimes people see these musicians or these celebrities as an extension of themselves because these people get to express themselves freely, and sometimes they don't feel comfortable enough to express themselves. So they see, you know, I guess Drake expressing himself, and they kind of express themselves through Drake. They live kind of vicariously through Drake. Or other times they're just doing stuff that's really cool that they would never do in their own personal life, so they get attached to that. That's why a lot of those gangster rap fans have some fans that not only are from the suburbs, but you know the type of fans I'm talking about. Those teenage boys that, let's just say, might not have been in the same communities as them. They become these huge ride or die fans for these street artists because they think it's cool. They would never live their life like that. They never got the chance to do any of this stuff. They think it's cool from the outside looking in, so they become attached to that thing. And they're not going to be able to live like a gangster outside of GTA, but they can live like a gangster through an NBA Youngboy music video or a Lil Durk music video. The music business itself really wouldn't exist if it wasn't for parasocial relationships, because obviously if there were no fans, nobody would be listening to the music and there wouldn't be that much money to be made. But even more so now in 2024 than any time in the past, because just playing the music really isn't enough anymore. Like, people aren't making as much money as they used to when it comes to just like playing music, right? It's not as valuable as it used to be. The streaming services have kind of diluted that for the artists. So artists have to make money in other ways rather than just people playing their music. So that comes with merch, and that comes with touring and ticket sales. So you kind of need these parasocial relationships. These artists need to form these parasocial relationships if they're going to be somewhat successful in this modern era. Which is why artists may cater more towards their fans than they used to in the past. Or again, I keep using them as an example, but they're just a perfect example of this. Nicki Minaj and the Barbs. Nicki caters to her fans in a way that's very special. It makes them feel like she really knows them. She really cares for them. And I'm not saying that she does. I'm just saying she makes them feel that way. And by doing stuff just as simple as liking their posts when they tag her sometimes, or maybe she follows her own fan pages. Like, this type of stuff really builds on these relationships and makes it so these artists can be in turn more successful. This modern era of these parasocial relationships is a lot closer probably than maybe any other time in history, because you're more likely to reach a person on social media. So it makes you feel like you're closer than in reality what you probably are. And this is why when Doja Cat went on that little tirade she had like maybe a year ago, when she was talking to fans and she told them, listen, if you're calling yourselves kittens, you need to find a job. Kittens, obviously, because Doja Cat. She was like, you need to find a job. And then she told one of the fans that, no, I don't love you because I don't know you. And this was like this huge scandal, like, oh my God, I can't believe Doja Cat said she didn't love her fans. And it's like, she's kind of right. Like, she doesn't know y'all. Of course, she loves her fans in like a casual sense, but not in the way that the person was asking her. She just doesn't know y'all. And that was just so weird for people to hear, even though it's probably the truth in every instance of all of these fan bases. These parasocial relationships are also part of the reason as to why some fans are really disappointed when they end up meeting their favorite artists, because they had this idea of them in their head that they were so great and they were this nice person. Sometimes these people are just assholes. Like, I'm not saying most celebrities are, but that's just how it goes. You know, they're regular people. Some of them are just not good people. And so they end up being super disappointed by that. Or sometimes their favorite artist does something that they can't believe they would do. Oh my God, they, got a charge for DV. And they just didn't think they would ever do that because they listened to their music 4 times in a row and thought they were the best person ever. Or sometimes they'll end up, maybe they support Donald Trump and that breaks their heart. Or maybe they were taking photos and being buddy with Diddy, and now they're like, oh my God, I can't believe. So, sometimes people will put these expectations that really don't come from anywhere but that person's own mind on these people, and then end up being disappointed in the reality of what that person actually is, because it's not the reality of what they thought they were in their own mind. Parasocial relationships are part of the reason why rap gets so much flack in comparison to other genres, because people will look at rap music or certain rappers and see a whole bunch of women and them talking about gangs and guns and talking about, promiscuous things and doing drugs and all this type of stuff. And they say, oh, well, what about your fans? What are your fans going to think? Why are you doing all these things when kids look up to you? Despite the fact that, there's, advisory warnings on their music, and it's really only for adults, or it's supposed to be for adults, and parents are the ones that are really supposed to be the ones monitoring their children and making sure that what they're consuming is age appropriate. Even despite all those things, people will still kind of hold rappers to the fire because they know that these relationships do have an impact on some people. To give an example of this, I've even seen some people talk about Future and the impact that he may have on certain people. And, because Future raps about drugs and women and all that type of stuff. And I've even seen some people say that Future, in the way that he makes drugs look cool, has had such an impact that they will try to say that it manifested itself in what happened with Juice WRLD, because Juice WRLD was a big fan of Future, and they say Future's influence on him made him take these drugs and eventually led to his death. Now, I think that's ridiculous to try to say that Future and his music is the reason why Juice WRLD ended up passing away due to an addiction. I think that's a really kind of a big reach, but there is an influence that's there when it comes to these rappers and their fans, specifically their really young fans, with these parasocial relationships. I know most of this video has kind of been focused on like the negative effects of parasocial relationships, but for the most part, again, they are harmless. For the most part, everyone has them and they're still normal people going to work, going to school. Not everyone turns into an obsessed freak who's, doxing people on Twitter or making fun of dead children or anything of the sort. Most of the time, they're normal people, but even sometimes they can be positive, right? There can be positive aspects of parasocial relationships. One of the main ones that I want to talk about really quickly is probably Tupac's impact on Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar has talked about his love and admiration for Tupac and how that changed his life and how he had aspired to kind of be like Tupac. And without Tupac, who knows if we get Kendrick Lamar? And Kendrick's arguably one of the greatest rappers, if not the greatest rapper of all time. And a parasocial relationship it was massive on his life. It was massive in how he kind of formed his future. Because who knows, maybe if Tupac doesn't exist, maybe Kendrick Lamar doesn't go on to do the things that he did. Maybe he does regardless, but still, there are some positive aspects to, parasocial relationships, especially in rap. It can happen in rap. Who knows how many rappers we don't get because of parasocial relationships? Who knows how many lives don't change? How many people don't get taken out of their poor situations? How many families don't end up moving out of poverty and helping their own community without some of these parasocial relationships, without this inspiration that people get from the rappers that they're seeing on TV and in these music videos? So while sometimes, or for the most part, people like to think of parasocial relationships as automatically negative, they're not always this horrible thing. So I just want to end this off by saying parasocial relationships are normal more times than not. It's okay to have them. Everyone does, right? But when they get a little too deep, when you find yourself getting a little too angry when somebody insults your favorite, when you find yourself, insulting people on Twitter or doxing people or getting a little too obsessed with your favorite rapper or favorite musician, just take a deep breath, okay? Put the phone down, go outside, go play some basketball, go take a walk in the park, go be with your family, because it's never that serious. Because it doesn't matter how much you love that person, they don't love you. And most of them wouldn't piss on you to put a fire out if you were on fire. So there's nothing wrong with having your relationship and having your favorites, your parasocial relationships, but just don't take it too far. But that's going to be the end of my video. If you agreed with anything I said in this video, make sure you let me know down below in the comments. If you think I'm an idiot for making this video, make sure you let me know down below in the comments. But I think I'm going to be done here. Again, make sure you subscribe, like, do all those things. It helps me out a ton. Have a good day. Be safe, be blessed. And I'm really happy you made it this far if you did. Peace.